Ladies and gentlemen, my crypto comics compatriots, core fans, comic enthusiasts, and fans of the extraordinary, get ready to dive into the dynamic world of TCT Comics. Today, we have a great opportunity to sit down with one of the masterminds behind this captivating comic universe. Buckle up and prepare for a roller coaster ride of twisted imagination as we uncover the secrets behind their unique characters, mesmerizing storylines, and astounding popularity they've achieved, especially in the land of the rising sun. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Detricks, one of the core team. How you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. And as you said, I'm one of the mantic minds behind TCT Comics and creator of the DT series. So we're going to have a nice time trying to go through and explain how my mantic mind matches up and designs things around this universe that we have created, and possibly some of the things that we had designed in the second one.
All right, now everybody keep in mind, this is not Mary Poppins, so not made for kids, and probably not safe for work either.
I should have a tattoo that says parental advisory at all times.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the background and your history with TCT Comics?
Sure. Believe it or not, I met up with Z Hill, the founder of TCT Comics, back in 1999. Back then, I was only doing novels and doing side art for covers and things like that in my youth. Did I have anything published? No. Did I have any goals in mind? No. I did it. The one story that I started writing was because of a young lady I knew in school, because she was always interested in seeing what I was creating. Somebody took interest in what I was doing. After I met up with him and we were talking about our own stories that we had and whatnot, and a lot of it just meshed together very well. So we decided to combine both of our creative minds together and become one conglomerate. The Zolak Unleashed series and the DT series. And it's just been rolling for 24 years now.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
In all that time, can you share any favorite character designs or storylines from your comics that that are your favorite?
You know, I have one brought up, and it was one of the storylines that we have as a side one that I just turned back into a digital copy because it was on paper copy. And everybody that knows anything about storing notebooks for over 20 years and having them in pencil and moisture, really hard to read.
Yeah.
But I knew that you would bring up something like that, and it's one of the ones that we creatively went through, because all these different worlds that we have, different characters, different species, different objective opinions behind it. And there's one called After Albion, right? But just as a reference, this is how we used to do things. Like, these are what I could gather from the notes and whatnot from the old file. And it was a character. The area was known as Albion, and it's a country. And it's literally based off of the precepts of a post-war economy. And then you have zoners, which are the neutral people. Like, they were caught in the middle between the war and didn't want anything to do with it, but had to fight to survive through it. And it ended up being mostly orphan kids and, you know, stragglers and all those other things.
So more like, of like the undesirable of the society.
Not only that, but just refugees caught between the hell that's going on between the front lines. But we have the character Ethan James William, one of the main characters, and another main character, which is Major Olivia Sarah Martinez. And this was supposed to be a human colony on a different planet. And it's got his appearance here, her appearance here, extra students and whatnot from literally the classes, and having profiles of these characters, having personality and what they do, how they do it. And then there's the staff, like principal of the school, Japanese teacher and language arts, a whole bunch of different things on here for students. And it's going to be Major's team that she worked with here. And then here's Ethan's team. He was part of the Iron Vanguard one of the distinct abilities of noticing the Iron Vanguard is that they have their dominant eye taken out and replaced with a cybernetic, so that they're capable of seeing in any condition. And those are zoners. They're neutral. Like, everybody that's trying to fight is the enemy. Like, they're there scavenging for supplies for other refugees. They're making sure everybody on the battlefield that isn't fighting is safe. Medical supplies, food, shelter. Both sides didn't care. You're the bad guy, and anybody caught in between the crossfire didn't matter. Anyways, this is a post-war thing where Ethan's going to school and has to actually graduate in order to get his service benefits. He's doing that. The major is one of his teachers, and it's literally just a clash between two sides. It's actually kind of funny because you get to see the perspective from both of them as they're going through all of this. That's one of our side stories.
When you're actually coming up with a story, you basically kind of write the Bible for it. You know, characters, how they interact, the look and feel of each one, essentially giving each character their own voice, right?
Mm-hmm. That I do. This is the basic one that we used to use. The new template that we have is a lot different, which is this template, where you have the name, the age, the race, ethnicity, because you have different races throughout the universe. Gender, occupation, family background, education. And it's an easy template, but this part here, the appearances are new setting so that we can actually use our models in 3D, because I do a lot of the 3D work. And if you know anything about 3D, it can be a pain in the ass without having measurements, whether it be in inches or clothing sizes or centimeters, you know, some sort of dimension. It doesn't matter if it's in metric, imperial, in fathoms or leagues or parsecs, it doesn't matter. Having these freaking proportions are very essential in 3D. And when you get down to it, you got the clothing sizes and all those other things as well that we have. And you also have literally their whole psychological makeup. Not only that, but we have a skill set list where they do all sorts of other things. The mindset in which they accommodate themselves and everything else, the physical profiles, the mental profiles are a big thing too. Because when you're talking about contrasting between, say, my character and Z-Hill's character, so you have this warrior Zolek that makes sure that everything is going on perfectly fine, and then you have this war-torn vet, and you got the compare and contrast between the physical profiles and the mental profiles are completely different as well. Not only that, but we have a spot for the professional mental, emotional profiles and additional vital information. Like, we go all out in the characterization of these characters so that we have an actual profile to go back on. So with all of that being said and put into categorization, like, if, to be honest with you, if somebody wants our profile like that, all they have to do is email us and ask us for it if they want to set up something like that so that they can have that whole thing.
Some of the challenges that you've faced as a team, and kind of how have you overcome that?
Me and Z-Hill, we have this way of doing things. And if either one of us gets stuck on something, we just call each other and go, listen, I have this, and this going on for me, and this is the character, this is the set, this is the motion, and I need to get from A, B, missing a couple of components. And it's like, okay, so we have something similar like that, and we'll throw ideas at each other until we come up with this. Literally, we monologue the characters and create the whole scene from there. Like, what is this character going to do? Well, this is the cause, this is the effect, this is what can happen, this is how it will happen. And let's throw in a little spice of stupidity in there just for a couple of laughs. If we come across character creation or a scene creation that we have a problem, that we just act it out with each other over the phone like, hey, this is what's going on. But if we have problems with, say, other companies, that's like, seriously, that's my department. Like, I won't say who got a copyright strike for trying to make a character similar to Z-Hills, but they got the strike. Like, they got it, like, hardcore.
All right, so when designing the world itself, not just the individual characters, but the overall world, what aspects do you focus on to make it kind of unique and compelling?
Well, that's the thing. There's only so many different layers of a society, and I do have a template for that as well. And it's actually kind of funny because this is how we start with stuff: is the government, how you got it run, divisions of power, the executive, judicial, the legislative, and the galactic. We got to have the galactic in there because, let's face it, we're working with a universe. This thing's vast. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's going to play with the universe? TCT Comics. So not only that, but we go through the politics. We see what principles we want, how many different varieties of politics we want, the opinions, the methodology, the affairs, and how they respond. Like civil servants and public officials, they're the same thing, but in some categories they can be divided. Like a public official could be a proctor or a magistrate over the civil servants. And then from there, you can have subdivisions from civil servants to the civilian population. Religion, we tend not to really play with, but there are types of religions in our universe. Some of them get really, really crazy. Like our one character that we have in the DT Comics, his name is Thane. He was in the Terran in the Vanguard. He's a Cadus X, and it's represented by the big X that's on his face. It's tattooed on his face. And their religion is honor above all. So if you have this conduct of honor above all, and the methodology is, it doesn't matter, this is the honorable thing, whether it's against the law or not, religious leeway is given in the TAC army due to this Cadus X. Like, okay, they didn't see them doing something honorable, so we have to review this case of murder because they stopped treason in this mind. So they have to look through everything and make sure that they don't have any religious stand, whether they're going to go to jail or be released on it. And everybody knows the cultural beliefs and all the norms and rules in society, services between all of that. The society itself, the galactic upper, middle, lower, and poverty, commerce, and its whole thing, the trading divisions, agriculture, going from mass, general, local, private, industrial scale type corporations and all that other shit. Like, we have a whole list of things that we go through when designing a world. And then there's the medical part. And that's what we do. I mean,
what about like the look and feel of a planet? I mean, if you look at like Star Wars, that's a very galactic story. You have planets like Hoth, Coruscant, Naboo, Tatooine. They all look different and have just that completely different feel to them. How are you able to incorporate that into the world itself?
Depending on which one you're talking about, because if you're talking about the comic books, it's easy to illustrate that. Like, if you don't have to give the feel of it. If you can see it, you already know what it feels like just by the representation of seeing it in a picture. But in novel format, it's a little bit different from explaining that. You'd have to make, expressions and actual descriptions of the feeling, like wind cut through the clothing and hit the bone so bad that it felt like it was going to shatter it. In that description, where is it? First off, you have the wind cutting through clothing so hard that it felt like it was going to shatter bone. And there's only two different ways of putting that. Number one, if you've ever been in, arid areas, it's either really cold or a desert. Because, let's face it, when you're getting hit by a sandstorm, it's going to shred shit. If you're getting hit by an ice storm in a wintered area, say like the Arctic, it's going to do the same damn thing, except you're not going to feel as much of it because you're being frozen. So you have to keep that in mind. But having a feel for it in the comics, it's just easily enough seen because your body will come right to the realization that, hey, I know what that feels like because I'm seeing it.
So you actually have some characters that you can mock up, right?
Yes, I do, actually. And I've already got a template brought up for a new character for the DT series that we've created. This is her background. There's two different types of Oranzop. There's Homeworld Oranzop and the P Foundation. So there's that. It's not really much of a secret because, you know, she's there. But there's this whole setup of her. And it's the general outline of how she is. Like, oh yeah, this is the one I wanted to touch base on. The cultural influences is based off of what you know from it is, and the character draws inspirations from Japanese and Chinese ideals of beauty and grace, societal norms affecting the character. NA. I have all of her technical skills here because she is a soldier. Mindset, determinations, abilities, physical profile. This is where we want to look for character development in 3D. Maintains rigorous physical training regimen for demanding field operations. Excellent endurance, strength, and agility supported by well-toned physique in combat conditions. Keeping that physical profile in mind, and then using these measurements that I have here, slender yet athletic, and all that other jazz. Boom.
Now this is Blender that you're actually using.
Yep, and this is MB Labs. So she's already got quite the slender, form. So let's zoom in on the facial area.
Of course you would zoom in there.
The body measurements are all the way down here. So let's go to the cheeks. Small and delicate nose. Okay, let's go to the nose real quick. So each one of these sliders has the ability to change the nose. Just quite literally the nose. Let's give her that delicate feature. What do you think? Up or down?
Maybe down just a hair.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's change this to 0.35 complete. 35 and set it at that. The shape, we're going to have to make it smaller. Let's run with 4.5. 4.5. Let's go through that, see if that works. Base size Z. You think that's small and delicate right there? Let's go with the curve a little bit. Let's bring that to, say, 0.60. I love using numbers because it shows. Bring that up to point bridge line, x-axis. There we go. Let's go to diameter, bring it down just a little bit. Let's do the nostril creases down a little bit. So we got 0.35, 0.25. Let's go with the tip angular at 0.60. Symptom roll, let's take that down to a 0.35. Wing angle, so let's bring the curve down to 0.3. There we go. Okay, 0.4. That looks better. All right. I'm not liking how that ridge is right there on her septum, so let's look at the nostril position. Sublats. That down to cute little pointed. That's how I want it there. At 0.6? Yeah, I want that at 0.6. And let's bring you down to... Okay. So, there we go. That's much better. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, it takes a little bit of work to figure it out, but you play with it. And let's see. Skin complexion. She's already got a fair body proportions already. Almond-shaped eyes. Got that. Deep brown. They're not that set far back though, so we just go over to, let's go to eyes and interpose. There we go. Let's take that to pose that into it. Let's see what you look like with some flat mocap. See what she looks like. Okay, there's your basic clay, and let's give her a comic book shade. Ain't too bad for comic book.
Yeah,
it's actually looking pretty well. I'm not sure if I want to do some regular studio, back to that. All right, her size, I can do all of that stuff later, but let's take and draw the cheeks, chin. Don't need the cleft. Then let's bring in the X a little bit. Let's bring out the Z. All right. So let's do Q5, Q5 set 06, and let's go with, say, 0.5.
While you're doing this, let me ask you, how do you incorporate feedback from the audience or your fan base to come up with the character designs? Or do you make adjustments based on their reactions or expectations at all?
Believe it or not, we get emails that we do take into account. And then there are others that are literally people that want to be in the comics. Like, we have friends from Japan, China, Russia, England, Germany. We have friends from all over the world that we've met in person, and they're comfortable being in our comics because of this. And they just love the idea of what we do, and how it is. They ask, and we have them sign the paperwork for it, and they're in.
That's cool.
You're talking about a universe full of characters that have the potential for being main characters in other stories. Like, take, for instance, the Vanguard and the Terran. Izzy and the Vanguard, they're two main characters in their own series. But when it comes down to it, in the DT universe, they're side characters. In that whole process, we have side characters that are main characters in other stories. And then in the original ones, say Zalek Unleashed or DT, like the series, they're just secondary characters. They're side characters in the main set. Like, take Scorch, for instance. I'm not bringing up Scorch because she is, how do you say, anatomically correct. Yeah, I was working on Scorch not too long ago to put her on one of our DDC cards that we're going to be selling. We have our normal sale cards, and then we have our X-rated sale cards. We have two different distributors for them. Yeah, we have requests for the X-rated ones as well, and they want them to be able to be played in DDC. Believe it or not, a lot of our female fans wanted that.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, like we mentioned before, kind of big in Japan there. What do you believe has contributed to the significant following of TCT in Japan?
A lot of our principles for, well, actually, a lot of the principles for the Zalek Unleashed series, the main cultural brand that we have there happens to be the Oriental view on it. And that comes from part of Z Hill's heritage. Like, we're big in Hong Kong, too. Not just Japan. We're big in Hong Kong. We're big in, I want to say Singapore or Beijing. I can't remember which. And it's because he has family in Hong Kong. And I actually have a cousin that lives in Japan. So we both have an understanding of the cultural area of that. And we rather enjoy putting that in our comics as well. But it's not just Japanese culture and the Chinese culture we have in it. We also have mixed heritage in it because, let's face it, I'm a quarter horse. I'm Ukrainian, I'm Spaniard, German, and Irish as my heritage. So I'm one quarter each, so quarter horse. But I'm built like a brick shithouse. Figure that out.
So do you actively collaborate with Japanese artists or writers or other creators to kind of help infuse that authentic Japanese influence into your comics?
No, actually, we don't work with other creators, but we do talk with our collective core fans. If we have questions about things, we have no problem reaching out to a core fan in one of the other various countries that we have an influence. Japanese and Chinese architecture, like, you can see that just about everywhere in pictures and whatnot. But it's really hard to get an up-close view on some of this stuff. And having fans from those regions of the areas makes it so much easier to ask them questions, or if they have a picture, because let's face it, I'd need a passport to, see all this shit. But if we have questions about things, we just ask them. And our fans, they really are. They like helping one another. They like talking with one another. They like making sure everybody on the core fan list is like, hey, are you guys okay? They talk and communicate with one another, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, you've been in one of our chats where you watch them.
It's actually interesting just to see the close connection that they all have with not only you, but with each other.
Yep. And that's what we enjoy, because the communication between us and our fans makes it easier for us to make things that they're familiar with. Not only that, but it's familiar.
Okay.
Like you're take the Zolix, for instance. They're a warrior-based species, tribal-based species as well. But a lot of the cultural norms on that, you can contribute to, say, what's the best way of putting it? Because it's not just the warrior's way. That's what the principles are based off for the Zolix. So that's the template and how it works.
Before we wrap this up, I would like to ask, can you share any upcoming projects or releases your fans can look forward to?
I am working on a bunch of different novels, and I'm hoping to have one of them out before the end of this month in
July.
We're working on having that intertwined with everything so that we have the wrestling comic come out. I'm working butt off with things. It's just
that sounds like you got a bunch coming out. So where can people find all of your comics?
Well, you can find it at tctcomics.com, and that is also with Az, who is an independent contractor of ours, and can find all our apparel, our merch, everything there, including the cards, even the fan art we've got, and some of the really old art that we have. Like, I have classic art on there too. This is some of my old art that I did. Like, it was on paper. These are the regular 10 houses masks. These are designs for ships. Like, they were rough sketches.
And these were from you said, late 90s?
Some of them,
early
yeah.
2000s era?
This is one of the ships that we have. These are also hand sketches of characters that I have. Like, you have Bob, Rick, Ray, and Day. You haven't met those two yet. Mika and Leah. You got Z-Hill up top there. Me, Buck, and Species, along with Gaia. Yeah, I got a lot of different ones here. Dude, this guy here, Mr. Flip, that one is he's an arch nemesis for Buck, which is actually really crazy. Yeah, like a lot of hand designed characters. This is the House of Star helmet. We got a lot of stuff.
That's a wrap, my crypto comic compatriots. We hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into the creative powerhouse that is TCT Comics. From their intricate world building to awe-inspiring character design, it's no wonder they've captured the hearts of fans around the world. So until next time, keep your eyes peeled for the next thrilling adventure from TCT Comics. And remember to let your imagination soar.